Good morning, everybody. Now, good morning to you, all of you. Good morning, Bengal. That would be more proper. Fine. Good morning, Bengal. Now, before beginning, let's see the queries that you have given. Sir, does chemosynthesis occur only in and around the brine pools? Yes. Can it not occur in the harsh conditions like the interior of the earth? No. It occurs only in and around brine pools. Clear? Because the chemical seeping would be utilized by the bacteria for generation of natural organic matter. Okay, Mandeep. Now, and as far as the question is concerned, you would be shared that question after the break, and we'll discuss those questions in the class itself. Fine. So you would be responsible for discussing those questions in the class itself. Let's start. Don't waste time. Let's start. Now, in the last class, we were discussing the principles of ecology. And in that, we have discussed what? We have discussed two principles of ecology. Third, we were discussing, and in that we have discussed homeostatic principle, the resilience characteristic. Then we were responsible for discussing also not only homeostatic principle and resilience characteristic, but also plant succession we have completed, SERE we have completed, ecological productivity we have done half. But let's complete ecological productivity. We have discussed why ecological productivity in the coastal areas happens to be more. That part of ocean which is near the coast would be having high ecological productivity. So why is that? Clear? Let's talk about that. And as far as the oceans are concerned, we know that oceans in general would be having low ecological productivity. I have discussed in the last class that when you talk about oceans, in general would be having low ecological productivity. Why we are saying low ecological productivity? Because in general oceans have only ecological productivity which is to the tune of what? Which is to the tune of 125. Clear? Cultivated lands would be having ecological productivity 650 gram per centimeter square per year. Open oceans would be having ecological productivity 125 gram per centimeter square per year. Estuary we have discussed. Estuary would be having ecological productivity 1800 gram per centimeter square per year. Mangrove swamps would be having ecological productivity 2500 gram per centimeter square per year. Also we can see that as far as the coral beds are concerned, coral beds would be having ecological productivity of what? Ecological productivity of 2000 gram per centimeter square. Algal bed would be having ecological productivity of 2000 gram per centimeter square per year. All these things we have completed in the last class. But if suppose a question is asked in your examination and that pertains to what? That pertains to the ecological productivity of wetlands. Do remember that wetlands, when we are talking about wetlands, they are areas of temporary or permanent accumulation of water which behaves as a separate ecosystem. The definition of wetland is what? They are areas of temporary or permanent accumulation of water which would be behaving as a separate ecosystem. And if we talk about the Ramsar list, we can see Ramsar Convention of 1971. And from then onwards, Ramsar list is present, which includes wetlands of international importance. We can see presently 75 wetlands from India has been included in the Ramsar list. The first wetland which was included in the Ramsar list was Ghana. The biggest wetland of India is the Sundarban. And the smallest wetland of India is Renuka. Renuka is in Himachal Pradesh. The biggest wetland is Sundarban. And Sundarban in, what to say, you know about that. See, ecological productivity of tropical rainforest is 2200. But we can see that on earth, ecological productivity of tropical rainforest, the total ecological productivity of tropical rainforest is very high. Because every part of the earth, if suppose we combine ecological productivity of all mangrove areas, it's not as high as tropical rainforest. But unit productivity, if we consider, unit productivity would be higher for mangrove areas. Unit productivity is higher for, suppose we are talking about that part of the ocean which is near the coast. Why? Here we are considering all the figures that I have given you. Suppose I have given you the figures of 2500 gram per centimeter square per year. Now this is the figure for what? This is the figure for mangrove swamps. Mangrove swamps. 2000 is the figure for coral bed, gram per centimeter square obviously. 2000 is the figure for algal bed. Then we can see 1800 is the figure for what? Estuary. Then also not only 1800 is a figure for estuary, then 650 gram per centimeter square for cultivated land. Now all these are for, in this case we are measuring the unit productivity, 125 for open oceans. So if we take sum total, then sum total net productivity is greater for tropical rainforest. Clear? Although in these areas the unit productivity would be less, 2200 only, which is less than mangrove swamps. But if suppose you consider the coastal areas in this part of the ocean where the algal bed is also present, where the coral bed is also present, the sum total of unit productivity would be more when compared to mangrove swamps. Clear? Mangrove swamps. Individually mangrove swamps would be having unit productivity more, but then sum total of productivity of mangrove swamps would be certainly less, and that sum total we are discussing as far as tropical rainforest is concerned. Now in case of wetland, just remember, we are saying why tropical rainforest? Because net productivity of tropical rainforest is more when compared to any other area. But unit productivity would be more for mangrove swamps, more for coastal area of the ocean, etc. Clear? Now that's one line only you have to remember. Now when we talk about wetlands, wetlands are areas of the temporary or permanent accumulation of water which would be behaving as a separate ecosystem. So they are areas of temporary or permanent accumulation of water which behaves as a separate ecosystem. Clear? So that's your wetland. But when we talk about wetlands, we can see that wetlands, Ramsar list, which is responsible for publishing the wetlands of international importance. And how come a wetland would be a wetland of international importance? Now a wetland would be designated as wetland of international importance if it is responsible for attracting at least 20,000 water birds. Then it is called as wetlands of international importance. Now in the Ramsar list, 75 wetlands from India has been included as wetlands of international importance. Some recently were added. Fine, and look into this, that which wetlands were recently added into that. But the biggest wetland, I told you, the biggest wetland of India is Sundarbans. The smallest is Renuka. Renuka is in Himachal Pradesh. And the first wetland of India which was added into this list was Ghana. But if we have to divide wetlands into categories, we can divide wetlands into 4 categories. One is mangrove swamps. Second is mangrove swamps would be present near the coastal area. Second is marshes. Marshes are wetlands which are present where? Which are present near the rivers or the lakes. And then we can see marshes. Then we can see also after that there fens are wetlands. Fens wetlands are which are formed due to accumulation of underground water or surface water. They have nutrients. So their ecological productivity also would be high, but not as high as marshes or as high as mangrove swamps. And then there is a type of wetland which is called as peat bogs. So peat bog is a wetland which has been formed due to melting of snow or has been formed due to rainwater accumulation. And all these types of wetlands are having purest form of water, rainwater is the purest form of water, it would be lacking nutrients. So if nutrients is not present, ecological productivity would be low. Clear? So as far as wetlands is concerned, maximum it would be for tropical rainforest, followed by what? Followed by marshes, which is present near the rivers or the lakes, followed by what? Followed by fens, which is formed due to accumulation of underground water or surface water, and followed by what? Followed by peat bogs. So this is the order. This is the order. Write down. Wetlands are areas of temporary or permanent accumulation of water. Areas of temporary or permanent accumulation of water. Wetlands are areas of temporary or permanent accumulation of water, or permanent accumulation of water. Thank you. Which behaves as a separate ecosystem, which behaves as a separate ecosystem. Separate ecosystem. Ecological productivity of wetlands. Ecological productivity of wetlands is maximum for mangrove swamps. Ecological productivity of wetlands is maximum for mangrove swamps, which is present near the coastal area. Maximum for mangrove swamp, which is present near the coastal area, followed by marshes, which is present near the rivers or the lakes, followed by fens. And fens are what? Fens are wetland which is formed due to accumulation of underground water, or it is formed due to accumulation of not only underground water but also the surface water, formed due to accumulation of underground water, formed due to accumulation of underground water, or surface water, formed due to accumulation of underground water or surface water, and followed by bogs, followed by peat bogs. And how is peat bogs formed? Peat bog is formed due to melting of snow or rainwater accumulation, formed due to melting of snow or rainwater accumulation, formed due to melting of snow or rainwater accumulation. So that's the order. So we can see maximum it is for mangrove swamps, which is present near the coastal area, followed by marshes, which is present near the rivers or the lakes, followed by fens, which is formed due to accumulation of underground water or surface water, and formed also. After that, we can see the ecological productivity is maximum for mangrove swamps, followed by marshes, followed by fens, and then by peat bogs. Peat bog is formed how? Due to melting of snow or due to rainwater accumulation. Clear? See, range of productivity of lakes is less than 1500. So, and don't have to remember all these things, because concentrate your time on remembering all those facts which are meaningful. They won't be asking you lakes, but remember the order. Remember the order in which. So in the last class we have discussed what is ecological productivity. And where is ecological productivity maximum? Tropical rainforest. The net productivity we have discussed. And we can discuss what are the factors which are responsible for determining ecological productivity, which is the amount of solar radiation and also the ability of plants through which it can convert solar energy into chemical energy. And also we have discussed that why the productivity of that part of ocean is more which is present near the coastal area and what are the reasons behind that. And today we have discussed that what is the productivity of wetland. Clear? Now before starting the protected areas and conservation initiative, I am giving you a question. See the questions. Now the question is, and this we will discuss in the form of a contemporary issue. So from this question, the lead would be to a contemporary issue. Now first, the question is, consider the following statements. Consider the following statements. And obviously, as UPSC asks you, select the correct code. I am not writing entirely. Select the correct code. So you have to consider the following statements and select the correct code. Now the first statement is CNG and CBG. CBG here stands for compressed biogas. CNG and CBG are chemically same. Now you have to answer me. Chemically same. Second statement is both have same calorific value. Both have same calorific value. And third is what? Same calorific value. And third is that H2S, hydrogen sulfide, is a part of biogas. Now these are the three statements. Tell me, which is every option you have, the option is many for you, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 3, none of the above, only 3, only 2. Tell me what is the answer to that according to your knowledge. What is the answer to that? I am giving you half a minute of time. Not I cannot give you 1 minute of time. Tell me what should be the answer to this. Reply. There are many options for you. Code includes all possible codes. Now tell me what is the answer to this. Anybody? See the question. Consider the following statements and select the correct code. CNG and CBG are chemically same. Both have same calorific value. H2S is a part of biogas. None of the above. One reply only. 3 only. Great going. 3 only. Okay. Now, let me answer. All these statements are correct. Every statement is correct. This is also correct. This is also correct. This is also correct. And let's see how. Let's see how these statements are correct. I have replied. All the 3 statements are correct. Now see one thing. When we talk about purification of water, now you'll say that what sir is doing. He has just now asked a question of 1, I think 3, 1, 3 only. Okay. Now, wait. Now, when we talk about purification of water takes place in 2 phases. Now, first is called as what? First is called as primary treatment. And second is called as secondary treatment. So, let's see purification of water first of all. And then we come to the answer of this. Now, you'll say that what sir is doing, he's asked a question on compressed biogas and he's talking about purification of water. What is the linkage as such? What is the linkage? Let's see. So, when you are talking about purification of water, we can see purification of water would be conducted in two phases. Clear? Purification of water would be conducted in two phases. Now the first phase is called as what? The first phase is referred to as the primary treatment. Primary treatment. The first phase would be called as what? Sorry. Write it properly. The first phase is referred to as what? It is called as primary treatment. Now, when we are talking about the primary treatment, we can see in this phase what we are responsible for doing. In this phase, the contaminated water, suppose this is your contaminated water. This contaminated water would be passed through, first of all, a bar screen. So here we are responsible for passing the contaminated water through a bar screen. So through a bar screen we pass it. So bar screen is what? Bar screen are bars which are 1 inches apart. We are passing that. And by remembering this figure, you will remember how contamination of contaminated water would be treated. Now this is your bar screen through which contaminated water is passed. So we are responsible for passing this through a bar screen. And the bars are 1 inches apart. What happens that the larger debris which are present in water, suppose these are the debris which are present in water, these debris would be getting accumulated here. Clear? These debris would be getting accumulated here. Now after this, now let's see, make it a little bit of pure by denoting it by light green color, and here we have said that this is your contaminated water. Fine, contaminated water. Now these debris, which are larger debris, would be mechanically removed. So we are responsible for mechanically removing the larger debris. Now what we do is that we are responsible for passing this water through another chamber. And this chamber is referred to as what? This chamber is referred to as the grit chamber. So we are responsible for passing this water through another chamber, and this chamber is called as what? This chamber is called as what? It is called as the grit chamber. Grit in Hindi or Bengali means kichad. So this is passed. And what we are doing is that we are responsible for reducing the velocity of its flow. So the velocity of flow would be reduced. We are not responsible for making this water motionless, but we are responsible for reducing the velocity of flow. After this, what we do is, now what happens during this phase, that the grit would be settling down. So suppose the grit has settled down, and this can be mechanically again removed. We would be responsible for mechanically removing it. Then what we are doing is, then we are passing this water through another chamber. And this chamber is called as what? This chamber is called as, this chamber would be referred to as primary clarifier. So suppose this is another chamber through which the water is passed, and this chamber is called as what? This is called as primary clarifier. In this case, the water which is directed through the primary clarifier would be made what? It would be made motionless. Motionless. And what happened due to this? That the large organic matter, suppose this are the large organic matter. Now the large organic matter would be settling. The large organic matter would be settling down, but the oil would be suspended. So here we are saying that the oil over here is suspended. So this is the oil which is suspended, and the large organic matter is settling down. Now we would be responsible for extracting this oil and large organic matter. So we'll separate them. And this oil plus large organic matter which has been separated would be constituting for us what is called as raw sludge. And this raw sludge we are going to separate. We are going to separate and treat it in another manner. But now this ends your primary treatment of water. Now the second phase starts. Now the second phase is called as what? The second phase is. So here we are responsible for starting the second phase, which is called as what? Which is called as secondary treatment. Now the water which is coming from the primary treatment would be taken. Suppose this is the water which is coming from the primary treatment. Now this has been taken. Now this water is passed through a system, and this system is called as what? This system is referred to as the trickling filter system. So let's see what this system is about. This system has now in this system we can see there are rows of small sized rocks like this which has been arranged. Rows of small sized rocks which has been arranged, and in between we have left space for aeration, and this system is called as what? It is referred to as trickling filter system. Trickling filter system. So what we are doing here is that the larger organic matter already we have removed. The larger organic matter we have already removed. Clear? But the small organic matter which has been left inside. Clear? The small organic matter which has been left inside would be, because in these the spaces microbes are present. So what will happen? Aerobic decomposition of small organic matter would take place. So here we are saying aerobic decomposition of organic matter would take place. Aerobic decomposition of organic matter would take place. Clear? So when aerobic decomposition of organic matter takes place, whatever is left inside is nothing but the organic matter, small organic matter. Already we have separated the large organic matter here. And in this case, we were responsible for making the water motionless. In this case, we reduce the velocity of flow, but here now this water, when it is passed through the trickling filter system, now it would be purified. Now see, I have changed the color also of water. Now this is pure water. Fine. This is pure water. And the only thing which is done here, that we are responsible for treating it with chlorine. So now treatment with chlorine takes place. With chlorine is done. And now you get pure water. Clear? But what has been left in this process is what? In this process, we can see the raw sludge has been left. And how to treat it? So let's take the raw sludge and treat it separately. So we are taking the raw sludge and responsible for treating it separately. Fine. We are taking the raw sludge and responsible for treating it separately. So we would be treating it what? Treating it in a chamber. We would be treating it in a chamber, and this chamber is called as what? This is called as dry digester. So this is a chamber which is called as dry digester, in which we are immersing the raw sludge. So this is raw sludge, and this would be treated how? This would be treated by anaerobic decomposition. So anaerobic decomposition would be taking place. Anaerobic decomposition would take place. So that's airtight. Now when anaerobic decomposition of the raw sludge takes place, because now you have pure water, then we can see that there would be two kinds of formation. One, biogas would be formed. And when we are talking about biogas, it consists of what? It consists of methane. That is 55 to 60%. That's one component. It consists of CO2. That is 40 to 45%. But also we can see that traces of hydrogen sulfide is present. So the third statement is correct, that the traces of hydrogen sulfide is present. Now this is called as biogas. Fine. Suspended means वो तैरता हुआ है. Fine, suspended. Now yes, you can call that a lingus species. Now see, this is your biogas. Now when you are talking about in India in the year 2018, we were responsible for launching a program, and that initiative is called as what? That initiative is called as SATAT. So it's Sustainable Alternatives Towards Affordable Transportation. Clear? Sustainable alternatives towards affordable transportation. And why we launched it? Why we launched it? Because we incur a very high cost on transporting CNG from other countries. On the other hand, now this is one condition, but on the other hand, we have abundance of organic waste in India because we have a number of cattle. The municipal waste also consists of a large amount of organic waste. So why not establish through dry digester technique plants in different parts of India which would be utilizing this organic waste to generate biogas first of all, and what is remaining inside the dry digester is nothing but biosolids. biosolids would be used as what? It would be used as manure in the field. What would be remaining inside is biosolids, which would be used as manure in the field. So first of all, in this initiative, the sustainable alternative towards affordable transportation, we are going to establish 5,000 plants in India. And these plants would be established on the dry digester technique, which has been developed by the IIT Delhi, and the organic waste which is present in abundance in India would be utilized for generating biogas, and this biogas, from the biogas, CO2 would be removed through amine scrubbing process. Traces of H2S which is present in it would be also removed with the help of activated carbon. What is remaining is nothing but methane, natural gas, which would be compressed and stored in cylinders and used for transportation purpose. So we can see that CNG, compressed natural gas, and compressed biogas are chemically identical, same. Both have same calorific value, and also H2S is a part of biogas only. H2S is a part of biogas. So all these things can be included in your study. And in this we have discussed what? We have discussed the purification of water. We won't be discussing when it comes to water pollution, the purification of water. So that's one thing which has been done for us. And the second thing that we know is what is SATAT. So write down a small topic today, a part of your contemporary issue, and then we start with the protected areas. Write down CBG, compressed biogas. CBG, compressed biogas. Compressed biogas. India incurs a very high cost. India incurs a very high cost. India incurs a very high cost in importing. India incurs a very high cost in importing. CNG from other countries. India incurs a very high cost in importing CNG from other countries. CNG from other countries. On the other hand, abundance of organic waste is present in India. On the other hand, abundance of organic waste is present in India. Abundance of organic waste is present in India, which can be utilized for generating biogas. Which can be utilized for generating biogas. Biogas. In the year 2018, Government of India took an initiative. Called SATAT. Sustainable alternative towards affordable transportation. Sustainable alternative towards affordable transportation. Affordable transportation. Under this initiative, 5,000 plants would be established in India. For developing biogas. 5,000 plants would be established in India for developing biogas. By dry digester technique. After which CO2 would be removed. through CO2 would be removed through amine scrubbing process. Amine scrubbing process. And we'll discuss this process in global warming and climate change. CO2 would be removed through amine scrubbing process. Amine scrubbing process. And traces of H2S and traces of H2S would be removed, and traces of H2S would be removed with the help of activated carbon. With the help of activated carbon. Traces of H2S would be removed with the help of activated carbon. Activated carbon. Clear? So we can see what is remaining inside now, biogas. Only methane remains. Write down what remains is methane. What remains is methane, which would be compressed. What remains is methane, which would be compressed and stored in cylinders. Which would be compressed and stored in cylinders. And stored in cylinders, which would be used for transportation purpose. Which would be used for transportation purpose. Which would be used for transportation purpose. Is that clear? So this is called as what? This is called as SATAT. So this is dry digester technique. So dry digester technique has been developed by IIT Delhi. Write down the dry digester technique. The dry digester technique has been developed by IIT Delhi. The dry digester technique has been developed by IIT Delhi. IIT Delhi. Clear? Fine. Now we can see that additional advantage of this program would be what? The additional advantage of this initiative would be that the biosolids which we would be getting would be utilized as manure in the field. Write down. The additional advantage of this initiative would be, the additional advantage of this initiative would be, that biosolids would be utilized as manure in the field. Biosolids would be utilized as manure in the field. Manure in the field, which would be enhancing production. Which would be enhancing production. Enhancing production. Which would be enhancing production. Clear? And crop production would be, which would be enhancing crop production, not right, enhancing production, which would be enhancing crop production. And see, one advantage of biosolid is also what? That it consists of silica. So since it consists of silica, it disallows the intake of contaminants into the plants. Write down. Biosolid consists of silica. Biosolids consists of silica. Consists of silica. As such, it disallows. The intake of contaminants. Biosolids consists of silica. As such, it disallows the intake of contaminants. Intake of contaminants. Fine. And see, any kinds of natural gas, if suppose you talk about natural gas is nothing but methane. If suppose we talk about CNG is methane because it is natural gas. Coal bed gas is nothing but methane. Clear? So any kind of natural gas is nothing but methane only. And we can see also not only it is responsible for and it would be also responsible for removing diseases associated with the crops. Write down. Biosolids would also remove. Biosolids would also remove diseases associated with the crop. Biosolids would also remove diseases associated with the crops. Diseases associated with the crop. Clear? So this is the contemporary issue of today, and that is called as what? CBG. That is compressed biogas. Compressed biogas. Fine. Let's move forward and today discuss. You take a pic of this. I am giving a space. Take a pic of this. Fine. Now let's move forward and let's discuss now the protected areas. And we'll start from where? We'll start from biosphere reserves. Let's start from biosphere reserves. Just a second. See, I have shown in this figure the 4 zones of biosphere reserve. See, what is percentage of methane? Percentage of methane is there only. It is methane exclusively. See, it's methane exclusively. Natural gas is methane. Natural gas is methane. So we are talking about CNG and CBG, both are same. Fine. We are talking about CNG and CBG, both are same because both consist of methane only. So please, and you have asked that, sir, the percentage of methane in the gas affected, is the chemical composition of CNG and PNG the same? What is the difference between the two? Now, PNG has many forms. Which type of PNG you are responsible for referring to? Just give me that and then I'll say. Now, sir, does the percentage of methane in the gas affect its uses? See, percentage of methane, when you talk about compressed biogas or compressed natural gas, more than 99% is methane only. It's methane only. But methane would be having some detrimental impact. Clear? In a generic manner, methane would be having some detrimental impact in a generic manner. Now, first is what? The impact of methane is what? That if combustion of methane takes place, if oxidation of methane takes place, then oxidation of methane is also responsible for producing surface level ozone, which is detrimental for us. Then if suppose methane comes into the atmosphere, it would be combining with hydroxin in atmosphere to form CO2 and water vapor, both of which are greenhouse gases. Methane itself is a greenhouse gas. It is a ozone depleting substance also. Clear? So ozone depleting substance also, it's a greenhouse gas also. Now let's start with the protected areas. And first protected area that we are going to discuss is your biosphere reserves. What is exactly biosphere reserve? That you have to know, first of all. Now, when we talk about biosphere reserves, we say that biosphere reserves are what? Biosphere reserves are areas of terrestrial or coastal ecosystem. They are areas of terrestrial or coastal ecosystem, and they have been declared as reserves. They have been declared as reserves under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. So, Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO started in the same year when Ramsar Convention was organized. That's 1971. So, you can see under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO, 1971. So, it was declared as any area can be declared as a biosphere reserve. Now, they are not only meant for protection of biological diversity, that's your biodiversity, but also cultural diversity. Cultural diversity. And what is cultural diversity as such? We understand that biological diversity is fauna and flora would be protected. But what is cultural diversity? Cultural diversity means that humans have survived in nature for centuries. Now our custom, our religious belief, everything is linked with nature. Our customs, our religious belief, everything is linked with nature. Our occupation linked with nature, our customs linked with, our religious belief linked with nature. And cultural diversity also consists of what? Also consists of traditional land use practices. Cultural diversity also consists of traditional land use practices which happen to be commensurate with nature, which happen to be suitable with nature. Suppose if we are responsible for cultivating rotational crops. Now these rotational crops is responsible for enhancing the fertility of the soil. Clear? And this is not responsible for damaging the environment in any way. Now this would be called as cultural diversity. So cultural diversity includes all those traditional land use pattern or traditional land use practices which happen to be suitable with nature. Suitable with nature. So first of all, know that what is biosphere reserve. It's not that biosphere reserves only would be meant for protection of biological diversity or cultural diversity. It is also meant for fostering economic growth. But the development should be sustainable in nature. Activated carbon is a carbon which enhances its surface area. Does SERE and its stages only take part in mountain? See, SERE would be taking place in those areas where primary plant succession takes place. There is no use of SERE in secondary plant succession. Already the soil was formed. Temporary loss of vegetation takes place. So this, now it's not essential that it would be taking place in a mountain area only. Write down first of all what is biosphere reserve. Write down biosphere reserves. Biosphere reserves. These are areas of terrestrial or coastal ecosystem. These are areas of terrestrial or coastal ecosystem. Terrestrial or coastal ecosystem which have been designated as reserves. Which have been designated as reserves. Designated as reserves. Under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Which has been declared as a reserve under the Man and Biosphere Program. The Man and Biosphere Program. (1971) of UNESCO. Under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Write down. They are not only meant for protection of. They are not only meant for protection of biodiversity. They are not only meant for protection of biodiversity, but also cultural diversity. They are not only meant for protection of biodiversity, but also cultural diversity. But also cultural diversity. And then explain what is cultural diversity. Write down. Humans have survived in nature for centuries. Humans have survived in nature for centuries. Survived in nature for centuries. Their customs, traditions, profession, customs, traditions, profession, religious beliefs, are all linked with nature. Religious beliefs are all linked with nature. Are all linked with nature. Linked with nature. Clear? So all these things are linked with nature. And we can see that's very hard to separate the cultural landscape from the natural landscape. Right? It is very hard to separate. It is very hard to separate the cultural landscape from the natural landscape. It is very hard to separate the cultural landscape from the natural landscape. From the natural landscape. Natural landscape. Is that clear? And we can see that cultural diversity also includes the traditional land use practices which happen to be suitable with nature. Right down. Cultural diversity also includes. Cultural diversity also includes the traditional land use practices which is suitable with nature. The traditional land use practices which is suitable with nature. Suitable with nature. For example, suppose if cow dung is used as manure in the field, it's not going to damage the soil in any way. If suppose we use rotational crops, it is responsible for enhancing the fertility of the soil. Clear? So it's not going to damage the environment in any way. Now this would be called as what? This would be called as the cultural diversity. Is that clear? And just remember one more thing, that the purpose of establishing a biosphere reserve is not only protection of biological diversity or cultural diversity, but also to foster economic growth, and the development should be sustainable in nature. Right on, the purpose of establishing biosphere reserve is also to foster economic growth, is also to foster, here I am writing, foster economic growth, but the development should be sustainable in nature. 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 Fine. Clear? Now this is about biosphere reserve. First of all, introduction. We have just studied the introductory part of it, not studied the entire part of it. But now just remember one thing, that when you are talking about biosphere reserves, if we compare biosphere reserves with national park and wildlife sanctuaries, we can see a number of differences between the two. One difference between the two is what? Suppose we are talking about biosphere reserve and national park and wildlife sanctuary. The first difference is who declares. Now, biosphere reserves are declared under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. But national park and wildlife sanctuaries would be declared by whom? It would be declared by the state government, approved by the MOEFCC, that is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. But it is declared by the state government. Now, that's the first difference. The second difference is in the pattern of orientation. Biosphere reserves are what? Biosphere reserves are ecosystem oriented. Wildlife sanctuaries are species oriented. So, biosphere reserves are meant for the protection of ecosystem. And we can see that Wildlife sanctuaries are meant for the protection of species. But if you talk about national park, you can see national park, the main thrust is given on the protection of one animal. The main thrust is given on the protection of one animal. So that's about national park. So biosphere reserve. And the third difference between the three is what? You can see national park would be always oriented towards one animal. It can be tiger reserve, it can be lion reserve, it can be elephant reserve. So it would be oriented towards protection of one animal. Now that's one thing. Now the third thing is what? That when we compare these three, we can also see that which one is more comprehensive. Biosphere reserve is the most comprehensive protected area. Why so? Because within a biosphere reserve, more than one national park, within a biosphere reserve, more than one wildlife sanctuary can be present. So it's considered to be most protected, most comprehensive protected area. For example, suppose Kaziranga Biosphere Reserve consists of Kaziranga National Park also. Clear? So it's more comprehensive in nature. Fine. And as far as the differences between the two is concerned, if we talk about that how human activities are regulated between the three, not two, between the three, we can see that human activity would be more strictly regulated where it would be more strictly regulated in national parks. No cultivation, no harvesting, nothing would be allowed. Only the thing which is allowed in national park is recreational activities like tourism would be allowed. So that would be allowed. Recreational activities like tourism can be allowed. But in the core areas of national park, even tourism is not allowed because the Supreme Court has put a ban on it. As tourists go, they spread litters. Tourists are responsible for frightening of the animals also. Frightening of the animals also. And tourists are not only responsible for that. Tourists are responsible for frightening of animals. They spread litters, all these things. And the infrastructure developed for tourism would be detrimental for the local ecosystem. So taking all these things into consideration, the Supreme Court was responsible for banning tourism in the core areas of national park. Clear? So activities which are allowed in core areas of in the national park include tourism, but not in the core area. Education, research can be allowed. But as far as wildlife sanctuary is concerned, cultivation, harvesting definitely would be allowed in this area. So that would be allowed in this area. And when you are talking about, suppose we talk about biosphere reserve. In biosphere reserve, even hunting is allowed in certain area for certain group. It's not that me and you would be hunting. So let's see who would be allowed to hunt and how that would be done. Clear? So we have compared the three protected area and found out the differences between the three. Right on, biosphere reserves differs from wildlife sanctuaries and national park. Biosphere reserves differs from wildlife sanctuaries and national parks. Wildlife sanctuaries and national parks in the following manner. In the following manner. Now, what is the first thing? In the following manner. First, biosphere reserves are declared under Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Biosphere reserves are declared under Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Whereas national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, national parks and wildlife sanctuaries are declared by the state government, and approved by MOEF CC, that is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Declared by the state government and approved by MOEF CC. MOEF CC. Now that's the first difference. Second, Biosphere reserves are ecosystem oriented. Biosphere reserves are ecosystem oriented. Ecosystem oriented. Whereas wildlife sanctuaries are, biosphere reserves are ecosystem oriented, whereas wildlife sanctuaries are species oriented. Whereas wildlife sanctuaries are species oriented. Species oriented. Species oriented. And the main thrust in national park, is for protecting one animal. And the main thrust in national park is for protecting one animal. Is for protecting one animal. National park is for protecting one animal. Clear? Fine. One animal. The third, biosphere reserves are most comprehensive protected area. Biosphere reserves are most comprehensive protected area. And why we are saying so? Because within it, more than one national park or wildlife sanctuaries can be present. Write down, as within it, more than one wildlife sanctuary. As within it, more than one wildlife sanctuary. More than one wildlife sanctuary. And national park would be present. Wildlife sanctuary and national park would be present. And the last thing, as far as the differences are concerned. Now, what is that? And that is a regulation of human activities. So, human activities would be more strictly regulated where? It would be more strictly regulated in national parks. Write down, human activities are more strictly regulated. Human activities are more strictly regulated. More strictly regulated in national parks. More strictly regulated in national parks. Where hunting, cultivation, harvesting, are not at all permissible. Hunting, cultivation, harvesting are not at all permissible. Are not at all permissible. So, for what purpose it can be utilized? So, we can see that national parks can be utilized for recreational activities like tourism. Write down, national parks can be utilized for recreational activities like tourism. National park can be utilized for recreational activities like tourism. Recreational activities like tourism. Clear? But then, having said so, do remember also one fact, that in the core areas of national park, tourism has been prohibited. Clear? So, it has been prohibited in the core areas of national parks. So, just remember that Supreme Court has banned. And write it down also, so that you remember. Write down. But in the core areas of national park, tourism has been prohibited. But in the core areas of national park, tourism has been prohibited. Clear? Fine. See, there was a conference of UNEP and UNESCO in 1983 at Minsk. Minsk is in Belarus. And at that conference, the 4 areas of biosphere reserve were demarcated. That what are the 4 areas of biosphere reserve? Now, the first area is called as what? It is referred to as core zone. Now, core zone means what? Now, this area is considered to be the most pristine zone. Core zone. This area is considered to be the most pristine zone, untouched virgin area. And in this area, we can see human intervention would be minimal. Very less of human intervention would be allowed. So, activities like education, training, research can be permissible, but very less of human intervention is allowed in this area. Clear? less of human intervention is allowed in this area, and that's your core zone. Very good. But when you are talking about core zone, we can see what kind of activity is allowed. The activities which are allowed in core zone include what? It includes education, it includes research, it includes training. So these kind of activities are allowed in core zone. Education, research and training. Core zones are present in not only biosphere reserve, it is present in national park, it is present in wildlife sanctuaries also. You just now learned that Supreme Court banned tourism in the core areas of what? In the core areas of national parks. So tourism has been banned. Clear? So it is permissible in wildlife we can see that core areas would be present in national parks also, wildlife sanctuaries also. But when we talk about that, what kind of activity would be allowed in core areas? The activities which are allowed in core areas include education, research and training. But human activities in core zone of biosphere reserve would be regulated by 3 acts. First is the Forest Act of 1927. Reverse the date, 1972. Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. And Forest Conservation Act of 1980. So there are 3 acts which are responsible for regulating the activities, human activities in the core areas of national. The Forest Act, the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 and Forest Conservation Act of 1980. Clear? When we talk about buffer zone, we can see in buffer zone, in this area, that is the buffer zone, in this area, here we have said human intervention minimally would be allowed in core areas. Here we say human intervention on a low scale would be allowed in buffer zone. And human intervention on a low scale includes what? It includes fishing. It includes what? It includes fishing, it includes timber collection, it includes grazing, it includes hunting. But hunting is not permissible for me and you. Hunting can land us in trouble. So it is, you can see the number of cases hanging. So it is permissible for whom? It is permissible for only and only the tribals, the forest dwellers. And that too to gather their foodstuffs. So they can hunt for gathering their foodstuffs, that's one thing. And as far as hunting is concerned, they can hunt for gathering their foodstuffs, so that can be done. And as far as hunting is concerned, they would be hunting only those animals which are animals of least concern. Not endangered, the vulnerable species would be hunted. No, not at all. So it means that hunting has been said to be an activity allowed on a low scale in buffer zone of biosphere reserve, but there are conditionalities laid down for it. See, you have asked me to speak bilingual, but this is an English medium batch. And people from Bengal, how they will understand my Hindi? Tell me. How come they will understand my Hindi? There would be difficulty in understanding. You can say that I can go slow, but I remember that people from Bengal, they can understand Hindi, but not completely they can understand Hindi. And I cannot speak Bengali. That's a problem with me. And if I have to speak bilingual, I'll have to take permission from my institute also to speak bilingual. Because this is an English medium batch. Although I am known to teach in Hindi medium also, you can see my videos also. But please do not ask me to speak in Hindi, because if I speak in Hindi, it would be a problem for you. Those who know Hindi also cannot understand my Hindi. Suppose I call biosphere reserve as Jeev Mandal Arakshit Kshetra, what will you understand? If I call this area, suppose I have to translate this in Hindi, I'll say that कोर क्षेत्र में मानवीय हस्तक्षेप नगण्य होगा. क्या समझोगे बताओ बच्चों? Because that is the Hindi I speak, that would come out from my mouth. You won't be able to understand that. So please, I'm explaining, I'll use simple words, more simple words. But don't ask me to speak in Hindi because my Hindi is dangerous for you. It's not that the local Hindi that we speak. We would be speaking the Hindi which is used for academics. And I give you an example. This would be called as Jeev Mandal Arakshit Kshetra. This would be called as Core Kshetra, Buffer Kshetra, Punasthapan Kshetra, Sthai Sanskritik Kshetra. What will you understand? Tell me. I can speak each and every word in Hindi, but that Hindi won't be digestible to you. Please, I'll go slow. Ask me to go slow. But see, again I am explaining. Core zone is the area which is considered to be the most pristine. Pristine means untouched area. Clear? Untouched area. Now, in this area, human intervention would be negligible. Very less human intervention would take place. Negligible here means very less. Clear? And in this area, we can see that human intervention is less. So what kind of activity is allowed in this area? Activities okay, I'll speak in English. I'll speak as simple as I can. Okay, fine. Okay, Kolkata, I speak only in English. Fine. No, see, I have very closely linked towards Hindi. My family is linked with Hindi literature. I have that love for Hindi. I have that love for Bengali also. I can understand, but I cannot speak Bengali. Fine. That's the problem because you cannot know each and every language. But whatever you say, I can understand. Now see, this is the core area. This area is the virgin area, pristine area, untouched area. Clear? In this area, human intervention would be very less. Very less of human intervention would take place. And in this area, the activities which are permissible include what? Training, research, education. These kind of activities. Training does not mean training IPS officers. Training means training associated with environment. Clear? Research associated with environment. So this would be permissible. And I said that in these areas, human activities would be regulated by 3 acts. Whatever you do in this area, you have to follow the guidelines of 3 acts. One is what? One is the Environment Protection Act of, Forest Act of 1927. Second is what? Second is the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. That you have to follow the guidelines. And also, the third is what? The third is the Forest Conservation Act of 1980. Forest Conservation Act of 1980. So that's the core area. Come to the buffer zone. In buffer zone, we can see that human intervention is on a low scale. Human intervention is on a low scale. And activities in this area include hunting, fishing, grazing, timber collection. But all these activities are highly regulated in nature. Means they are following certain guidelines. You cannot go and hunt there. Hunting is meant for tribals only, forest dwellers only, and they can hunt to gather their foodstuffs only. So they would be hunting for gathering their foodstuffs only. So in this manner, hunting would be permissible. Clear? They can hunt to gather their foodstuffs. So, this manner hunting would be permissible. So, this you have to understand. Each and every activity which is allowed in buffer zone would be regulated. Grazing would be also regulated. Why? Overgrazing results in desertification. Now, next is restoration zone. By the word itself, see, restore, restoration, restore. Why? Because this area has suffered from environmental degradation. So, this area needs to be restored to its original form. This area has suffered from environmental degradation. So, this area, and in the environmental degradation, why? Due to anthropogenic activity, due to human activities. This area has suffered from environmental degradation due to human activities, and that's why this area needs to be restored to its original form. So, the activity which would be permitted in this area or which would be conducted in this area on a large scale would be what? It would be afforestation. You can say better reforestation, because earlier this area had forest. So, reforestation would be conducted on a large scale. Fine. So, this activity would be allowed. Is that clear? Fine. And activities in buffer zone is managed by the Environment Protection Act of 1986. Now, stable cultural zone, nothing to learn, because this reflects the cultural diversity of Biosphere Reserve. Cultural diversity of Biosphere Reserve. Right now, there are 4 zones in Biosphere Reserves. There are 4 zones in Biosphere Reserves. First, core zone. There are 4 zones in Biosphere Reserves. First, core zone. Core zone. In this area, human intervention. In this area, human intervention would be minimal. Human intervention would be minimal. Would be minimal. And activities like education, and activities like education, research, education, research, and training, education, research and training would be permissible, education, research and training would be permissible. Activities in this area would be managed by 3 acts. Activities in this area would be managed by 3 acts. The Forest Act of 1927, the Forest Act of 1927 would be managed by 3 acts. The Forest Act of 1927, Wildlife Protection Act, 1972, Wildlife Protection Act 1972, and Protection Act 1972 and Forest Conservation Act 1980 and Forest Conservation Act 1980. Forest Conservation Act 1980. So that's about your core zone. So activities in core zone would be education, research, training, human intervention. Very less of human activities would be allowed. Human intervention would be low. And we can see that activities in this area would be regulated by 3 acts. The Forest Act of 1927, the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 and Forest Conservation Act of 1980. Clear? 1980. Now, the second area is called as what? The second area is called as buffer zone. buffer zone. Now, in this area, we say that here we have said human intervention negligible. Here we say human intervention on a low scale would be allowed. Right on in this area, human intervention. In this area, human intervention on a low scale would be allowed. On a low scale would be allowed. Human intervention on a low scale would be allowed. Low scale would be allowed. And activities like on a low scale would be allowed. And activities like hunting, grazing, fishing, timber collection, hunting, grazing, fishing, timber collection would be permissible. But then having said so, do remember also one thing, and that is what? That all these activities would be highly regulated in nature. Right on. But all these activities would be highly regulated in nature. But all these activities would be highly regulated in nature. Highly regulated in nature. Clear? Fine. And we can see that regulated in nature means they would be regulated by laws. And the activities in buffer zone are regulated by one law, and that is Environment Protection Act of 1986. Right on. Activities in buffer zone are regulated by Environment Protection Act. Environment Protection Act 1986. Environment Protection Act 1986. Protection Act 1986. Clear? Fine. Protection Act 1986. Now, next zone is called as what? Next zone is referred to as the restoration zone. This area would be referred to as what? It is called as restoration zone. And in this area, environmental degradation has taken place. Why? Because of human activities, anthropogenic activities. Right on. In this area, environmental degradation has occurred. In this area, environmental degradation has occurred due to anthropogenic activities. Environmental degradation has occurred due to anthropogenic activities. Anthropogenic activities. As such, the area needs to be restored to. As such, the area needs to be restored to its original form. The area needs to be restored to its original form. Restored to its original form. And we can see the activity which would be allowed in this area on a large scale would be what? Reforestation. Right on. The activity which is allowed in this area. The activity which is allowed in this area on a large scale would be reforestation. The activity which would be allowed in this area on a large scale would be reforestation. You cannot say afforestation because earlier the forest existed in that area. Reforestation. And the last is what? Stable cultural zone. And nothing to write in that. Why? Because this area reflects the cultural diversity of biosphere reserve. Right on. This area, stable cultural zone, this area reflects the cultural diversity of biosphere reserve. This area reflects the cultural diversity of biosphere reserve. cultural diversity of biosphere reserves. This area reflects the cultural diversity of biosphere reserves. Is that clear? Biosphere reserves. Fine. Now, as far as the factuals are concerned, the factuals include many. See, if you talk about how many biosphere reserves are there in India, there are altogether 18 biosphere reserves. 18 biosphere reserves in India. Clear? And the first biosphere reserve which was established, just one second. The first biosphere reserve which was established in India was the Nilgiris, and that stretches out in 3 states: Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So it stretches out in 3 states: Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. And we can see the 17th one which was established. 17th one was Sesichalam. That's in Andhra Pradesh, and it's very famous biosphere reserve. It is famous for the red sanders. Red sanders means the red sandalwood. So this biosphere reserve is famous for the red sanders, the red sandalwood, and this is a very famous biosphere reserve. Then we can see 18th one, and the 18th one was Panna, which is in Madhya Pradesh. Red sanders is what? Red sanders is red sandalwood, and the export and import of which has been completely banned in India. Clear? 18th one was Panna. But out of 18, what you have to remember is 12. And these 12 biosphere reserves include those biosphere reserves which have been added to UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. So when you talk about UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve, it is UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve is for exchange of experience, research, even personal among nations. So that's UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve all about exchange of personal experience, all these things, research. But as far as biosphere reserves are concerned, the 12 biosphere reserves which has been added into UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Write down one line about that. Out of 18 biosphere reserves of India, out of 18 biosphere reserves of India, out of 18, just one second. Sir, can the restoration zone become or declared as core zone or buffer zone after restoration? Yes, it can be declared. Not core zone, but buffer zone at least it can be declared. Sir, when it comes to memorize the terms of various acts, it seems tough. See what to do. But then UPSC is all about enhancing your knowledge base. I have seen even a very mediocre student getting rank in UPSC because of his hard labor, no knowledge base. I know that when you learn all these things, you would be producing that on the paper. Producing that on the paper. I know that. Every one of you can write very well. All of you are graduates. Clear? And all of you can write very well. And I have linkages with Bengal. People write very impeccable English also. Fine. And if possible, guide us how to learn the various clause associated with them. Okay, I'll teach you. See, what is there is to memorize the keywords, not the entire thing. If you memorize the entire thing, that would be difficult. So emphasize on keywords, or sometimes also take the initials of some words and make one word. For example, suppose Supreme Court in the year 2017 banned lithium, antimony, mercury, arsenic and lead in firecrackers. So I'll take the initial terms, LAMAL. L for lithium, A for arsenic, M for mercury, A for antimony and L for lead. I'll remember that. LAMAL. Clear? So sometimes these words, if suppose you have framed these words with the initials of the other words or the other keys, you can easily remember that. And sometimes what happens, if any fact is asked you in the form of a question, that would be more in your head when compared to mugging any other detail directly from the book. If suppose I asked you CNG, CBG, I know that you will never forget because that was asked in the form of a question. So if that is asked in the form of, try to frame a question on that, you can easily mug up that, all those things. Fine. Does Forest Act have any impact on any of the zones? Yes, Forest Act definitely would be having an impact on the different zones, because it's mainly the forest dwellers which are present in these areas. In core zone also, the forest dwellers are present. Buffer zone, forest dwellers are present. Restoration zone, stable cultural zone, we cannot say. But in these areas, mainly the tribals are present, the forest dwellers are present. How come it does not have? It would be having impact on them. Fine. Panna, that is the 18th Biosphere Reserve. Write down, out of the 18 Biosphere Reserves, 12 biosphere reserves have been added. 12 biosphere reserves have been added. In UNESCO's 12 biosphere reserves have been added. In UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve, 12 biosphere reserves have been added. In UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. In UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserves, which includes Nilgiris, where it is present, just now we have discussed, that is present in Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Second, Nokrek is in Meghalaya. Third is Great Nicobar. Great Nicobar is in Andaman and Nicobar Island, that everybody knows. Fourth, Nanda Devi. See, all N are at once. So that's how I remember it. 4 N's, Nilgiris, Nokrek, Great Nicobar, Nanda Devi. That's in Uttarakhand. Then 2S, Simlipal. That's in Odisha. So you can remember 4S, 4N, 2S. Like this also you can remember. 6 is now known to you. 6 is your Sundarbans. That's your West Bengal. And then the maximum from a single state in the World Network of Biosphere Reserve includes what? From Madhya Pradesh. See, 3 are from Madhya Pradesh, maximum for a single state. Amarkantak. So that's another way of remembering. Amarkantak. Then Panna. And then Panchmadi. So all from Madhya Pradesh. Clear? Then you have Agastya Malaya. Agastya Malaya. That is your Agastya Malaya, and that is present in, stretches out in two states. One is Kerala and second is Tamil Nadu. Then also Kanchenjunga. That's in Sikkim. And this is the highest biosphere reserve of India. Then Gulf of Mannar. And Gulf of Mannar, you know, between India and Sri Lanka. But we can see that as far as Kanchenjunga is concerned, Kanchenjunga has been declared as mixed heritage site by UNESCO. Mixed heritage site by UNESCO means that it is not only known for its cultural significance, but also known for its not only cultural significance, but also known for its natural significance. I don't know a word about Kanchenjunga. 1-2 lines about Kanchenjunga. You have copied this Gulf of Mannar between India and Sri Lanka. That's known to you. Write down Kanchenjunga. Kanchenjunga is the highest biosphere reserve of India. Kanchenjunga is the highest biosphere reserve of India. Highest biosphere reserve of India. Biosphere reserve of India. Which is not only known for natural significance, which is not only known for natural significance, is the highest biosphere reserve of India. Just stop it there. Write down according to UNESCO. According to UNESCO. According to UNESCO. It has been declared as mixed heritage site. According to UNESCO, it has been declared as mixed heritage site. Heritage site. Heritage site. As it is not only known for natural significance, as it is not only known for natural significance, but also cultural significance. As it is not only known for natural significance, but also cultural significance. But also cultural significance. Cultural significance. As it is not only known for natural significance, but also cultural significance. Is that clear? Fine. Now that's your biosphere reserve. This much in biosphere reserve. See, there are more than 100 national parks in India. There are more than 550 wildlife sanctuaries in India. But 18 biosphere reserves in India. Clear? 18 biosphere reserves in India. Now, there's a term which is called as what? Which is referred to as biodiversity hotspot. And you know the difference between biosphere reserve, national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. Now let's come to another concept, and that is called as biodiversity hotspot. So you can see that biodiversity hotspots, the definition of biodiversity hotspot has been given by Norman Mailer. And he says that an area can be declared as a hotspot provided it fulfills two conditions. An area can be declared as a hotspot provided it fulfills two conditions. Now the first condition is what? The first condition is that in this area, at least 1500 plant species or 0.5% of entire plant species of the world should be endemic. See, the concept of biodiversity hotspot, I go slow, was given by Norman Mailer. And he says what? An area can be declared as hotspot provided it fulfills two conditions. Now the first condition is what? The first condition is that in this area, at least 1500 plant species. So number, suppose if we take 1500. So in this area, at least 1500 plant species or 0.5% of entire plant species of the world, or 0.5% of entire plant species of the world should be endemic in this area. Should be endemic in this area means should be exclusively found in this area. Should be endemic in this area. Exclusively found in this area. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is what? That in this area, second thing is what? That more than 70% of the primary vegetation means that has been established through primary plant succession. More than, just one second. See, tribal people, they can have their dwelling in buffer zone. But in core zone, they can be present. If they are present indigenously, they would be allowed. They will remain there. But they cannot be shifted to core areas. If they were present in the core areas, they would be allowed to stay, but they cannot be shifted. See, the World Network of Biosphere Reserve is a term which has been given by UNESCO. And World Network of Biosphere Reserve includes nothing but all those types of biosphere reserves through which a number of biosphere reserves would be included in World Network of Biosphere Reserve for the purpose of cooperation among nations, exchange of experience, exchange of research. I have told you, exchange of personnel even. So for all these reserves, these conditions apply, that we can exchange experience about these reserves with other countries. They can exchange their experience with us. So for these reserves, we can include, we can indulge in sharing experiences, research, and also we would be responsible for sharing personnels even. So for those reserves would be counted under the UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserves, for which we are doing this between the nations, for which we are exchanging experience, personnel between different nations. Those reserves would be called as biosphere. So there's a slight difference between the two. Now, endemic means what? Endemic means exclusively found in this area. And second is about 70% of the primary vegetation of that area has been lost. And it is due to anthropogenic activities. Primary vegetation means what? That vegetation which has been established through primary plant succession. Primary plant succession. It means the original vegetation. Clear? Because based on primary vegetation is another concept also, and that is the concept of what is called as frontier forest. Frontier forest is considered to be the original forest of the planet Earth. Fine. There are 35 hotspots in the entire world, out of which 4 are present in India, which includes Himalayas, Western Ghats, hilly areas of India-Myanmar border, and Andaman and Nicobar Island. Because Andaman and Nicobar Island is a part of Sunda land. And Sunda land stretches out where? It stretches out in not only Andaman and Nicobar Island, which it is mainly present in Indonesia, Malaysia. The extension of that land comes into Andaman and Nicobar Island. Write down biodiversity hotspots. Biodiversity hotspots. According to Norman Mailer, Norman Mailer, If an area fulfills two conditions, if an area fulfills two conditions, it can be declared as a biodiversity hotspot. If an area fulfills two conditions, it can be declared as biodiversity hotspot. First, at least 1500 plant species, at least 1500 plant species, or 0.5% or 0.5% of entire plant species of world, of entire plant species of the world, of entire plant species would be endemic in that area, would be endemic in that area, endemic in that area. Endemic means exclusively found in this area. So by virtue of this fact, we know that this area has immense biodiversity. So at least 1500 plant species or 0.5% of entire plant species should be endemic. Entire plant species means the entire world should be endemic in that area, should be exclusively found in that area. And that reflects that what is the biodiversity of that area. Second, about 70% of primary vegetation, about 70% of primary vegetation has been lost. 70% of primary vegetation has been lost due to anthropogenic activities, due to anthropogenic activities, human activities, due to anthropogenic activities. Now, if these two conditions are fulfilled, then that area would be called as biodiversity hotspot. And primary vegetation means that which has been established through primary plant succession. And primary plant succession you have studied. That if there was no vegetation in that area from the very beginning, the process through which vegetation gets established in that area would be called as primary plant succession. Right now, there are 35 hotspots in the entire world. There are 35 hotspots in the entire world. In the entire world, out of which 4 are present in India. Out of which 4 are present in India. 4 are present in India. First, the Himalayas. Second, the Western Ghats. Third, the hilly areas of India-Myanmar border. Hilly areas of India-Myanmar border, and Andaman and Nicobar Island, Andaman and Nicobar Island, which is a part of Sundaland. Andaman and Nicobar Island, which is a part of Sundaland. Clear? And we can see out of these 4 hotspots which are present in India, the first 2 are the most threatened, that is Himalayas and Western Ghats. Right on. Out of the 4 hotspots, the first 2 are the most threatened, Himalayas and Western Ghats. Out of the 4 hotspots, the first 2 are the most threatened, Himalayas and Western Ghats. Himalayas and Western Ghats. M.S. Swaminathan, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, he said what? He said that they are the paradise of biodiversity on earth. Yet due to anthropogenic activities, yet due to human activities, they happen to be paradise lost. About Himalayas and Western Ghats, that they are the paradise of biodiversity on earth, and yet due to anthropogenic activities, they happen to be what? They happen to be paradise lost. They happen to be paradise lost. About Himalayas and Western Ghats. And we'll discuss after the break, we'll discuss that why and how vulnerable are Himalayas. Clear? Let's take a break.